I just thought I'd come on here today to engage with you on a number of topics that are dear to my heart, and more in particular, which have been inspired by my mother, Miss V. Veronique, who died on July 22nd last year. And today, being August 19th, it marks 1 year since my siblings and myself and other family members buried moms. Of course, today is not the very best day for me. I am feeling a bit low. It's already a year since mommy is no longer among us. My mother was a single mother for a number of years. She had 10 of us. And although by profession she was a seamstress, she engaged in a number of different jobs just to ensure that her children were well taken care of. So, of course, mommy was a housekeeper and a nanny, and she would have done that more so before I came along. She was also more in my lifetime a laundry woman. And I'm not talking about the laundry women as in working at a laundromat. That did not exist then. So, as a laundry woman, my mother worked for a well to do individual in our society, and she went to the river every Monday and Tuesday from about 8:30 until maybe 4:30, stood in the river and washed the clothes. All those hours. Of course, she would stop to have her Coke, which was one of her favorite drinks, and to have it with bread and that red sausage, or sometimes biscuit and sausage. She would have a bath at the same time. And I recount very vividly us having to go to the river when it was our lunch break at 12:30 to take up some of the dried clothes and take them back home while she continued washing the others. When she came back in the afternoons at 4:30, after we had returned from school at 3:30, mommy would then begin cooking for us. So she worked hard. And then on the Thursday and the Friday, she returned to the home of the person that she worked for to iron those very clothes, along with an older lady who had done it previously. So my mother worked hard. In the nights, she would go to a sewing machine and do her sewing, making clothes for us, home, school, and church clothes, and then do sewing for the neighbors and other people who wanted it, often not even taking a lot of money from them, or sometimes having to wait for a long time for them to pay her. But she did it out of the goodness of her heart. The thing I want you to note, and I'm talking in particular to young single mothers, you may be having a difficult time, but it is important that you use your resources to take care of your children. My mother was big on that. She did what she needed to do to take care of her children. It wasn't always easy. I saw her sometimes she was tired. Sometimes we had to sit beside her, do the little hemming or the basting, thread the needle on occasions, just in general be around to see what she was doing, to see if we could learn something. I don't know if I learned much then because I was mostly interested in my books, but nonetheless, mommy made sure that we were around. So I want to just implore you young mothers, particularly if you're single mothers, to take care of your children with the resources that you have. And one of the things that mommy always said, irrespective of the fact that the father may not be coming through, you can't neglect your children. It isn't to say that we aren't to hold the men accountable. And of course, these days, there's the redress in the courts so that we can get the men to step up. But my mother always said, we take care of our children, even if the father is not doing what he had to do. So I just wanted to put that out there. Something that I remember that my mother did. The other thing I'd like to touch on that my mother did was ensure that spirituality was a thing. So the idea of praying was important. So she ensured that we did that. She ensured that we were at church. She took us to church as well. Some of you may not be able to do that because you may have more than one job. I don't know. But I want you to remember the spiritual aspects of the lives of your children and even that of yourself. That is important in this world where they have nothing to fall back on. The Bible verses that they learn in Sunday school or Sabbath school or in VBS or in Bible school, Bible study, will come through for them when they find themselves between a rock and a hard place. I see too many children not having a map to follow because they were not taught any form of spirituality. And that saddens me as an educator and a mother as well. The other thing I'm remembering from my mom was that the common courtesies that children needed to be taught, she ensured that we were taught the common courtesies. Thank you. Excuse me, please. May I have this? And of course, knowing your place as a child. So you're not to be engaging in big people's conversations. You cannot even be around when they are conversing. You had to remove yourself from the space, remove yourself from the room. That is something I'd like to see young adult mothers, even if you are single, and in particular if you're single, to do with your children. Children need to know their place. And then, of course, I need you. I need you. I'm remembering that from my mom to teach your children to take care of themselves. And I'm talking about learning how to dress properly, dress well, learning how to prepare meals, how to wash their clothes, how to carry themselves, their hygiene. That is important because remember, we aren't raising them for ourselves. They are one day having to go out in the world and will need to be able to take care of themselves. So that is something I really like to put out there as I remember it from my mother. My mother also believed in education. She was an avid reader. Even when she grew older, she read everything that came along her path. She read the books of my children, the textbooks. She read her Bible. She read novels. Instill in your children the importance of reading. I know that the tablets and the other forms of screen life is quite prevalent, but we cannot discount the importance of reading. As an educator, I see so many of our children, even in 2025, struggle with reading because I believe in many instances, not in all, there was no stimulation the home on the home front. Buy your children some books. Forget about the tablet and the screen time that have the eyes going all over the place and allowing them to concentrate. And so they come to us with nothing. And as they go through, it's a struggle. They find reading a chore. That's something that my mom had big up in the checklist for her children. My mommy had a green thumb. And so whatever she planted grew. She grew beautiful flowers, particularly the rose, which happens to be my favorite flower. She grew vegetables and fruits. She grew medicinal herbs and plants so that when we are having a fever and having a little cold or the flu, she just went into her yard. I myself have some of those very medicinal herbs that my mom grew when I was a child. I've got some of my plants as well in the yard. So you may find it prudent to have a little green space. as well. These are some things I'm remembering from my mom, which may very well be of value and use to you, single mothers. We have to be resourceful. That is something that she understood, being resourceful. She understood the idea and the importance of being of strong character. She had a value about herself. Apart from taking care of her outside, she had a value. And even if she found herself in a situation of domestic abuse, she understood her character. And when she realized that that was not going to work, she removed herself from the situation. She removed herself from my dad, who didn't understand that domestic abuse was not what he ought to have been doing, or he chose not to. So, strong character, carrying yourself well, not having your name caught up in a hearsay and a this say and a she say and a they say. I see on social media all of those nonsense that our young women are doing. It stuns me. It irritates me at times because some of those women have children. What type of example are we setting for our children? My mother was strong and resilient. She was caring and loving and giving, even when she herself didn't have much. I remember as well, my mother understood the idea of family bonding. One of her sisters, a second sister after her, she being the first, lived in the UK for many, many years. And when she returned to Dominica, I was about 7 or so, or 6 or 7. And I saw immediately the bond between my mom and her sister. My aunt assisted my mom as much as she could when times were rough. This was the only home where we were allowed to go to. We felt wanted and we felt safe being around my aunt as she and my mom sat outside. And again, we know in our place we couldn't be around them because they were having their private conversation. So my cousins and I engaged in play, and upon the bond that we grew and started there continues up to this day. So those cousins and I, we are quite close. The family bond remains, of course. It is prudent that you have your antennas up and have your eyes open so that you understand where to draw the line and where to have your boundaries with family members who are toxic and are draining you emotionally and mentally. And that's quite all right. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking in general about having family bonds and looking out for the other, the sisterly thing, if you have sisters and if you have close friends who are sisters. So, all young women out there, particularly the single women, I am just throwing out some things that remind me of my mother, the spiritual aspect, the importance of education, teaching our children how to navigate taking care of themselves, being of strong character, knowing when to remove ourselves from a toxic situation, using our resources, knowing what we've got in our hands, like I've always said in the garden. So you have the nanny job and you have the housekeeping job, but you're remembering that prayer is important. So you instill that in your children. And of course, being a good human, being kind, giving of the little that you have. I saw my mom in the Lower Otters area a few years ago, many years ago, when I was a younger woman, when young mothers came to her to make their uniforms. Sometimes they didn't always have the money, but my mother made the uniforms for them and gave it to them nonetheless. Sometimes she even charged them lower cost than what it was, because that was the nature of the woman in this cruel world when COVID-19 should have taught us so many lessons. And there are persons who are quite obnoxious and horrid out there. We need to have something that will keep us insulated and protected, not dumb and blind to what's out there, but have us in a good way so we can teach our children. Today, August 19, has I sit and reflect on my mom who has been buried today, being 1 year. I'm offering you these few tidbits, offered you these few tidbits that remind me of my mom and hope that it may take root with someone, that they may find anything, something from what I would have said to be useful, and as a little roadmap for us to follow.